Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. It is 2100 GMT on a Tuesday, so it must be drone stuff this week. I'm trying to make that sound good, and I don't think it worked, but there we are. Joined this evening, or this morning, for Bruce. There's Bruce on our right. Chris Ballard also in tomorrow. Both chaps from the future there, the voice of the future. Jonathan Rupprecht, who's with his muted microphone, and who knows if he's really there. And a first time out for Kevin Pomaski. He's going to talk DJI. But first of all, I don't know if you are there, Jonathan. I was going to mention John Taylor and the case. Bruce, I saw your video about it the other day. We had him on as a special last week. What's your feeling about the whole thing now? Now time's moved on.
Who, me?
Yeah, you.
Yeah, it's great. It's wonderful. It's a victory for the little guy, and I just hope that we, or the community keeps running with this inertia, because obviously now the FAA are licking their wounds, working out strategies for changing things, perhaps getting 336 rescinded, perhaps getting Congress to grant them some extra power, because they'll be lobbying that, well, this is essential, we must do. Look, we've had this drone registration and nobody's died, no planes have been knocked down. Now that we've taken it out, disaster will prevail. You know how the hysteria argument works. So I've called on the members of the drone and the model flying community to get out there and start lobbying their congressmen, saying, look, you know, this is proven to be unnecessary. We've had registration, other countries haven't, but nobody's had any loss of life, no serious injuries, no significant property damage. This is all a storm in a teacup, and just keep working at it. We've got to be very, very strong in the PR side of things, because we've got a lot of commercial entities now lobbying. You know, here in New Zealand, we have the New Zealand Airline Pilots Association, who have come out demanding almost that we have registration with all sorts of fatuous reasons. I actually sent an email to the head of the Airline Pilots Association, because he's come out and said it's only a matter of time before a drone brings down a manned aircraft and there's a loss of life. And I emailed him and said, you did right, 100%. I fully agree with you. But the problem is you don't realise this time scale. I pointed him to the George Mason University report and said, it's not going to happen in your life. It's not going to happen in your kid's life or your grandkid's life. According to the people who have crunched the numbers, it's going to happen sometime in the next 400 years. There'll be the first injury incident involving a drone and a manned aircraft. So what is your problem? You know, you should be complaining about how dangerous it is to drive to the airport. That's the thing. So yeah, we've got to keep the inertia up. But to John Taylor, fantastic. He did a really good job. The AMA, I think they're sort of sitting in a room going, what's FPV? What are these drone things we've heard of? What's going on here? You know, perhaps I'm being a little over the top, but one gets the impression from the FAA that they are really sort of sitting around waiting for other people to do things. They have a court action in abeyance, but that's it. They seem to have done little else. Having said that, we must thank them for getting Section 336 in the first place. But since then, they just seem to have gone all quiet and passive. What's going on?
Do you think we ought to be... now everyone's had a bit of a shock to the system for modelers and small trying droners as well. Do you think it's this time for everybody to actually pay attention and do something when called upon to do something? I think there was an inaction from the community last time. I think there was this is never going to happen, it can't happen, and oh look, it did. So who are we going to stand behind, do you reckon?
Well, it's difficult, because although we like to think we're important, the drone flying community and the model flying community is a very small community. The AMA has, what, 200,000 members? And they're the biggest single organisation. So we have to be vocal beyond our numbers. We have to really ramp up our game and box smart and box above our weight. We really have to do the job properly. So I think there needs to be some organisation. I mean, we've got the various pilots unions, that they're well organised. We've got the other lobby factions, they're well organised. We're just a bunch of individuals who like to call ourselves a community, but we do very little to act as a unified force. We've got to get our act together. I've said for many years, we need to set up a single, you know, and something equivalent to the FIA or something, you know, a global body that stands out there and represents all its members, but we don't have that.
Yeah, maybe we should mandate the more Friday night pub nights around the world, and that sort of thing would then generate, you know, the communication required. Has anyone else got anything to say on Mr. Taylor before we move on?
I completely agree with the organization and really coming together. That's the one thing over the years that really hasn't happened, where it's a pilot or in the commercial side, a client-driven group or organization that has our interest in mind. You know, especially, you know, just recently watching the post that was mentioning the manufacturers group, and that's not really fair. You can't really have a manufacturer take a lead or spearhead this when obviously they have a different bias. So I completely concur that we need a organization or a mouthpiece, lobbyist, as you mentioned, something like that. Exactly. There we go. The Manufacturers Alliance. When just saying those words, what exactly does that mean? That doesn't represent us, the users or the hobbyists or the commercial aspect, and that's my side of it. It's just is what it is. So I think organization and the pub nights probably will be a great start.
Well, it's a start, isn't it? You gotta move in a direction. And I suppose I can bring in now. I bring it in a little bit later, but tomorrow we're expecting the launch of the Dji Spark, and that's, I believe, a reaction to the rules that are about to drop in China on June the 1st, where they're getting the 250-gram registration number as well. And I notice from the SDK announcement that if you live in China, you're going to have to sign in every 3 months, I think it was. Maybe Kevin, did you read that a bit better than I did?
Yeah, the release that came out from them specified all of that. The activation July 1st, outside of China, all of it. But users in China are required to activate, at least once every 3 months within the application. So you're not given any leeway there.
And what does anyone think that might prove or be useful for? I'm not quite sure why you need to activate every 3 months.
It's just the same way when you do catch and release when you have tagged animals. Just checking in.
Okay, that's one way of putting it. All right, let's move from the more serious stuff back to the more jolly stuff. And there's nothing more jolly than someone from the Southern Hemisphere, and by that generally means a Kiwi or an Australian, packing a bag and disappearing off around the world. That's all they seem to do, is spend their time on sofas. And Chris, you're the king of big FPV racing or freedom class. Oh, what on earth is Jonathan doing? Jonathan's on his running machine or something. A lot of feedback there, Jonathan. He's going to try. He's on his machine, isn't he? His first 1,000 kilometers. Anyway, ignore the lawyer who's currently walking towards you or running away from you. Chris, you're going on a trip. You're going to take a camera. Tell us about the trip.
Yes, so we're going on a very exciting journey called the Drone Racing Grand Tour. That's going to be in June, so we're leaving very, very shortly, in fact. And first of all, we're off to South Korea to go to the FAA Drone Racing World Cup. Very shortly after that, we're heading over to the UK. Then we're going to be attending the Western Park Aeromodelers International Air Show, which I've been told is quite the event over in the UK. And from there, we're going to be striving to attend all of the FAI World Cup events and visit as many communities as we can in between.
You're saying we? How many people are going on this
when I say we, I mean freedom.
You're taking freedom with you everywhere. Fair play.
Yes, and also I'm taking some of my trusty equipment, and as we're talking, I really hope this works along the trip. And also taking my other DJI equipment, so heavily DJI endorsed at the moment. Not endorsed, but endowed with equipment.
So for those people that don't know, you gave fantastic running commentary at one of the events that was claimed to be the Drone World FPV Racing Championships, and that was in Hawaii last year. And you live streamed and gave a really good behind the scenes view of what was going on. I guess that's what you're aiming to do again this time.
That's one of the many things we're looking to do. So what we did in Hawaii was we ran around with this mobile phone. Bear with me, I can't even see myself on the.
Yeah, no, that's yeah.
So I ran around with just a mobile phone. I've learned a lesson this time, and I'm going to be taking a rather big battery pack so we can continue. That's a 20,000 milliamps, so it should see me through a day at least. Yeah, so we're going to be doing a daily vlog, keeping people updated as often as we can with our daily adventures, and try and keep you all entertained with things that we do and things that we find in the drone racing community.
Now, the FAI were mentioned just recently by Bruce, and the FAI is something that Freedom Class is associated with now, and that's the race series that you're going to be following, I believe, is the FAI sanctioned race series.
Yes. So the World Air Sport Federation. So it's quite a big deal. Last year, Vince B was the world champion, so we're actually very keen to see this year if he can pull it off again, or if there's going to be a challenger and a new world champion.
And any of these race classes, because you have a 500 class and then your huge thing, are any of these your classes, or are they the normal 250s and the like?
At the moment, it's just the regular 250s and such. We're going to be getting a lot of learnings from all of these events as well, so we can start to consider what the best way to implement the Freedom 500 and the Freedom class in the future.
It's going to be quite a bit of dosh this trip. So are you going to be looking for sofas? Is this a tour of enthusiast sofas around the world? Is that what you're aiming to do?
Yep. Well, basically, if anyone does have a sofa, pull out a couch or anything, I'd be more than happy to utilize that. But yeah, in short, we are looking for the support of the community. We're going to go around and visit everyone, and if anyone feels they can contribute by giving us a lift or anything like that, it would be greatly appreciated. But by all means, it's not a necessity.
How are we going to know where to give you a lift from? Are we just going to have to recognise you as we drive past you somewhere, or have you got an itinerary coming?
Some freedom sign. No, so I'm going to be keeping people updated with the daily vlog, so everyone's going to know where we are and where we're going to be. And social media is going to play a very big part in this as well. So we're going to do a bit of planning ahead and say, look, the next week we're going to be traveling here, and here. If you're in the area and want to say hi to the world via our show, please come along and let us know, and we'll come and visit you. So far, we're getting a lot of support so far. So when we go to Korea, the CAMA, the Korean Aero Modelers Association, is going to be taking great care of us. And then when we go over to the UK, Thomas from Raggy Frames is going to be taking some care of us, getting us over to Western Park, which is going to be pretty cool. So you're going to get to meet some interesting figures of the community as we travel around.
No, that's cool. I met him at Farnborough last year. Seemed like a very nice chap, and he lives in a very nice part of the world. So that'll be a nice start to your visit over there. That's very good. Okay. Has anyone else got any questions for the gypsy of the FPV world?
Are you going to be bringing any of your airframes with you and lugging them around, or is it just the phone and the Osmo?
At the initial stages, I'm only going to be traveling around with the little Mavic, but in the coming months, we will start to have a couple of airframes here and there popping up.
Cool. That's good stuff. Well, I look forward to. So, is there a URL? Can I go somewhere yet? Can I find the blog? Has the vlog started?
Keep an eye on our Facebook page, on our YouTube channel, and on www.freedomdronesports.com. All of those will have links to what is happening and when, but predominantly we're going to be having our daily vlog on YouTube, and the live streams will be via Facebook because it's just so easy to share and interact with everyone as to what they're doing.
Okay. All right. So that was kind of the fun bit. Now we drop back to the not so fun bit, to a white screen. Kevin,
Sir.
You have written recently about how a certain manufacturer's app might be tracking us. Maybe you can unpack that a little bit.
Absolutely. You know, when you say tracking, you know, I can take my tinfoil hat off. It's not technically tracking since you're showing them and telling them where you are. The whole article came from what exactly you are agreeing to when you create a profile. And once the article is brought up, we can talk in more specifics about it. But really, there's 3 groups of information, and a lot of pushback that I've received since writing it compares refrigerators, iPhones, and other IoT devices to it, in a sense of saying, well, if this is how you feel, then you shouldn't have any equipment. But when you really look at the packet of information that's being cached and possibly sent, it really puts it in perspective, especially from the commercial side of it. When you look at what this company, and it says, you know, DJI is the company we're talking about here, your audio, your telemetry, and that actual video, the downsampled version, is cached and possibly being sent to their servers. And in the terms of service, it specifically states that any of this information, which includes right there the telemetry, video, and audio, is their property. Basically, it's saying that the combination of this information, if in their hands, so let's just say you have a damaged bird and you have to send it back. That case, everything that's on that bird itself is now DJI's property and can go to third parties. So when you look at these commercial operations, and I arguably, I'm chief UAS pilot for a global engineering firm. I have 24 pilots, 21 airframes. We fly all over, coast to coast. Critical infrastructure projects that might be sensitive. These kind of embedded tools really could be used for different reasons if someone was to have that information. So the article came from really just an educational and awareness where the consumers, the hobbyists, and the commercial side, most of the commercial and the clients themselves have to understand that UAS operators should be aware of this. And, you know, it started quite the uproar. A couple of DJI employees got involved. And, you know, now it seems that I'm not able to upload or sync any data, even for testing. So I might be off their Christmas list. But really, it just comes down to awareness. You know, I was not the first individual to write about it. I think I have a larger voice, though, in the community. But this was something that was identified when the audio became attached to that cache file. That was really the, wait a second, your microphone's turned on as default settings. Your microphone is already on your iPad or on your phone. Why would that be in that data set? And there are good reasons for it. I talk about that as well. You know, absolutely, for incident or accident investigation, and this is something I've personally done, that would be invaluable. If I had the communications between myself and a VO and there was an incident and we were able to hear that and maybe identify some, you know, things to do better next time. But overall, it's something that I believe the community and clients need to be aware of, that the default settings of this system really are creating a cache of invaluable intelligence that people need to be mindful of, and you know, where it is. Their terms actually say United States servers, Chinese servers, in Hong Kong. So let's just you can end it there, and we can discuss now more about it.
Well, it's it's the old caveat. Nobody who reads the instructions or the small print, isn't it? I guess that's the bottom line. Whoever does. And I see him coughing there, but I bet Bruce has got. So I bet Bruce always reads the small print. I can't think you ever wouldn't read the small print.
You know, Bruce, if you do, that'd be great, because I actually was invited to do a beta on a new UAS application. And before I did, you know, I went to the link. I was like, wow, this looks like a great application. I did read the terms, and I did not participate because it specifically stated that even though I'm the actual, you know, quote unquote photographer or owner of that image, as soon as I transmit it for cloud processing, it no longer is my property, and it becomes post-processed imagery, which is owned by that app and third party. And that's something that, go ahead.
Only those with something to hide have anything to fear. That's the sort of thing they throw at you, isn't it? But you're right. It's, I don't know, from a commercial perspective, this must be hugely worrying, because I know that a few years ago, the US government was concerned about Huawei and a few other router manufacturers, because they thought they could have backdoors in their products which would send critical information back to China for intelligence purposes. Well, isn't this exactly what we could have here in a way? That we've got a product that is able to, you know, if you're doing, as you say, sensitive work on something like a nuclear reactor or something like that, there must be something within the government regulations that say you may not use a product that repatriates this data back to a foreign party, especially if the foreign party is China, because there are all sorts of trade sanctions and things on countries that are, foreign powers that are not part of an alliance with the USA. So I don't know how people can get away with using the DJI products in those roles. Yeah, I've no idea.
Exactly. And my team is not different from anyone else's. We employ, let's see, 6 Inspire 2s, 2 Phantoms, and Inspire 1. So that's 10 DJI airframes that are flown weekly. And there have been some projects which are sensitive clients and sensitive infrastructure that possibly, since the default settings, since that's something that by standard operating procedures, you don't mess with an app settings, you just leave it default, quite possibly could have been transferred to a unknown third party. That
Jonathan,
is very worrying.
Sorry, Jonathan, there must be rules and regulations for how data is handled and moved across borders and things like that. There must be some statutes out there. If you're there, is there anything that comes to your mind? Yeah, is there anything that comes to your mind?
No, I don't really primarily deal in the privacy law type of area, but I know that there's definitely some landmines there that you need to be very careful for. You could step on.
Right.
You as the operator, or how would that landmine go off? How would I
would say
exploit them?
Both potentially. I mean, or even if you're hiring somebody. So if you're going for a sensitive infrastructure site, so now then all of a sudden the drone flew over and got pictures of the nuclear power plant. I wonder if there was something deep down into the contract, the master service agreement that you signed with such and such a large utility company that you agreed to, and then potentially indemnification or something. I'm just wondering if that's potential there, that people sign contracts, which then with this information getting leaked out, then that could potentially come back to bite them at a certain point. So I see there's liability. Well, as an attorney, right? I see liability everywhere, right?
every corner has liability to an attorney.
Everything is liable, right? Even that bubble wrap, using a bubble wrap, kid could suffocate, right? So not even the bubble wrap is safe. So the I see issues. So I would be very careful.
Well, and Jonathan, I completely agree, and that is insightful when it comes to the. In my article, I actually state that, professional service agreements, master service agreements, the dissemination of information from the client and the collector, those are strict, and those are in there. Oil and gas companies, utility companies, not to mention Department of Defense contracts, all have a section stating that. There's one part of this that people in the community here and anyone on this call, and you being an attorney, there's also the other side that I might have agreed to those terms as having a DJI account, as uploading that information, but there's several states that have anti-wiretapping laws that have and state that all parties need to be aware if they're being recorded. So now all of a sudden, if I'm flying a mission and Gary's standing next to me and we're chatting, and he either provides critical information or just saying, "Hey, Kevin, what are you doing for dinner tonight?" All of a sudden now I've violated his rights of wiretapping, and then I've transferred it to Hong Kong. So that is a liability as well that no one's really talking about. And I think touch on it in my article a little bit, identifying that and really how that could be an issue. There's a lot of different things when it comes to those down in the weed aspects of what we're talking about here. It's just too open, and it's something that it has nothing to do about being sensationalizing any of this. It's an actual situation that people need to be aware of. And then we can segue this into what this release we just got about mandatory profile generation, and now all of a sudden we've become leasees of equipment and we don't own it. That's kind of what it comes down to. So please, I just want open dialogue and transparency. Full audits of who those third parties are would be great. Things like that. But
I don't think the community's sort of picked it up like that, and I think there's a great deal of confusion as to what is actually going to happen on Thursday and Friday. And there was a great quarters, and I honestly think they were hoping to sneak this one out whilst the Spark launch is going on and the world goes nuts for the Spark. But that's just my opinion. I could be completely wrong. I don't know. Where should we start? Should we start? Jonathan, do you dare touch this one first? I bet he doesn't.
What part?
Well, just that the activation, and then also the act of throttling your aircraft slightly if you don't do what you're told.
Yeah, I don't know if that was intentional or not. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I know it is hard to know whether some of it got lost in translation, that press release, but it certainly got people's attention. The 160-meter horizontally, 30-meter vertical restrictions and end of your camera, and all being done on a product you've bought. So as Kevin says, it's almost like you've suddenly leased the thing, isn't it? Can again, it's probably not your area of law, but can manufacturers change it? It's probably in those terms of service I never read their specifications at the slightest whim.
Oh, I don't do that I don't do that area of the price liability and all that. I don't do that. So I just focus on aviation law, and so I can try to provide my clients the best service. But there's a whole lot of there's some issues there that if that happens, you could potentially either get yourself in a lawsuit of some sort, or then you could potentially burn the end customers, and more people start going, I'm really tired of this DJI stuff. Yeah, it may be the cheapest thing out there, but I'm really tired of all these extra headaches and these no-fly zones. And then, oh great, I get a code for an airport and I have difficulty flying mapping missions at that airport because I can't so I think there's a certain point there that more and more people are gonna just gonna lose sales.
Jonathan, let me rephrase Gary's question. If Cessna had on their website and their marketing that their plane can travel 5 kilometers and you're able to have streaming video from that plane at all times, and then after you purchase that airframe, you find out that the only way to get those marketed and said results is if you create a login and profile, but that was never told to you, if that was how it was. Does that change anything?
There's probably something that you might be able to hang your hat on if you're a plaintiff's attorney, trying to do a class action lawsuit against DJI. I mean, there is a current class action lawsuit going against DJI right now for there was like a firmware update that supposedly damaged the lens or something from the Phantom 2 Vision. So maybe not FAA, but DJI could potentially get themselves, into more hot water by doing these updates. And at the same time, I think they're also trying to hedge their bets because it's like on one end you have the potential liability that comes from your customers, and then you also have potential liability that comes from not trying to control your customers, because if there is a crash and somebody sues the the drone manufacturer and stuff like that, they might wanting to use these safeguards that they're trying to put in place right now as means of mitigating potential liability in other areas. So the DJI is also, I think, caught in a rock and a hard place between their products being used for illegal, nefarious, criminal activity, and they're trying to hedge liability there at the same time, also maybe introducing new liability. So it's a cost-benefit analysis, overall. And they're stuck in a rock and a hard place, I think.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. They are, and it's a byproduct of being the most successful company out there by far. No one else comes close. And this, of course, is the week that we saw a dear old GoPro Karma flying into the back of a stadium. Now the Mavic wouldn't have done that because the sensor would have stopped it. But I don't know. Did everyone? I didn't put that on the notes, but did that just looked like a crazy little incident?
Right, I saw that, and then at the end of the day, I know some people were saying that based upon the Taylor case, that drone was not required to be registered. It's like that was not a Section 336 protected aircraft, because there are, from my understanding, I do not know of any community-based organizations out there with a safety guideline that allows individuals to fly drones at like ongoing baseball games, right? Like, okay, so since you're not flying in accord with the community-based safety guidelines, then therefore you are going to actually fall into the 107 category. You're a recreational 107 operator that the FAA can register, require a remote pilot certificate of, can prosecute all day long. So I think when people are thinking of that case, I'm like, yeah, that actually wasn't the Taylor case. There's a lot of myths and misconceptions surrounding the whole entire case. So like, I mean, I would say probably some of the bigger ones here would be like, you know, this one I just pointed out here, that recreational drones are now completely unregulated. I'd be like, well, no, you have recreational drones that are not in the 336 category. Okay, that was evidenced by that crash, and mostly pretty much everything you see on the news is going to fall into that category. And then there is the Section 336 category recreational aircraft that the FAA can take enforcement against. The Taylor case stood for that the FAA cannot do any rule or regulation, but really regulation governing 336 aircraft. 336 also allows the FAA to prosecute the individuals flying recreational aircraft that fall into the Section 336 category who endanger the safety of the national airspace. So it's like either way you would be able to get authority to actually go and do enforcement action after these people. It's not like the FAA is, you know, handcuffed and like, oh, we can't do anything. Like, you can go after the guy at the baseball field. You can go after a model aircraft flyer who's even operating within CBO guidelines, endangering the national airspace. So the FAA can do something. They have tools in their tool belt, and then people are going to go, well, you know, this is just taking an extra tool away. It's like, no, there's a bunch of tools. Okay, under 107, you can require registration, remote pilot certificate, a bunch of things that are pretty quick and easy to prove. Hey, what's your name? Quickly run it through the registry. Done. We got you. And furthermore, since 2014, do you know how many prosecutions there have been against the unsafe drone operators from the FAA? You know how many enforcement actions have gone on since 2014?
One.
No, it's total of 48. Total of 48. Entire United States. Thousands and thousands of flights. And now people are like, hey, this registration took away the tool. There were tools all over your tool belt, and you only got 48? Like, are you serious? It's like Home Depot up in here, and you're like asking for a little Swiss Army knife, you know? And it's just like, are you really seriously telling me this? And then people are going, oh, this. Then they go, oh, this was a good tool. I'll be like, this was a horrible tool. Are you serious? Like, go take a play right from the Drug Enforcement Assistance Act of 1988. And what happened there, Congress actually told the FAA in 1988 to fix the Part 47 paper-based registration process so as to combat drug runners, okay? And in there, they specifically told the FAA, they listed out five things to fix. The use of fictitious names and addresses by applicants for such certificates, the use of stolen or fraudulent identification and applying for such certificates, the use of, by a person applying for such certificate of a post office box or mail drop as a return address for the purpose of evading identification of such person's address. I mean, there's no physical characteristics tied to that certificate and that either that pilot certificate or registration. And it's like, guys, like, look at these points that they brought up back in 1988, which FAA actually had to correct later on. And you're like, let's apply that to Part 48. And you're like, guys, Part 48 doesn't even apply with what was in the past that Congress told the FAA to fix. Like, what? Like, stop it. Stop trying to defend bad. Like, stop it. Everyone goes, oh, well, safety and security, it's the first step. It's like, guys, answer the question. Was Part 48 adequate? Was it adequate? Don't answer another question. Was it adequate? Because people constantly go back, it's necessary for safety and security. No. Was it necessary? I mean, was it adequate to protect the safety of the national airspace? Was it actually educating people? Was it doing this? Not all drones have been registered. There's a giant gap there. Does DJI report every sale that has been done to the FAA and say, yeah, we sold it to Gary over here. Here's his address and everything as from the credit card statement and everything. So this is where it went. And then you can track it. Is there that? No, you can go on Craigslist, eBay, Amazon, and buy these drones all day, every day, and from different people and stuff. And it's not going to be you're going to have to do some work to kind of, track it back. And even with registration, was it really providing security? No. Was it providing accountability? Obviously not, because you're told to attach it to your aircraft with what? What are you going to use? Tape? You know how easy to get tape off? A 2-year-old can do it. Really? So your whole security system is can be easily busted by a 2-year-old, right? I'm like, guys, this was just it was a bad situation. And what I think is getting even more messed up right now is that people are getting upset, going, we need to actively work against this 336 situation and try to repeal it. We're going to take our political power, our time, our influence, so much of those resources we have there that are very limited, and we're going to go after these people who, by definition, are actually supposed to be safe to fall into this protected category. And we're going to do that. However, we're going to neglect going after getting the FAA, have pressure applied to them, or going after Congress to supply the FAA more money to actually hire more prosecutors to actually go after the illegal drone operators who are taking business away from law-abiding citizens. The constituents of some of these groups. I just find it so are you serious? You want to go after and try to undo 336? Meanwhile, some of your constituents are actively losing work and business right now. Husbands and fathers with kids are losing money to illegal operators. And there's only been a total of 48 prosecutions with all these tools in your tool belt. And you seriously are going to die on this hill? This is what?
Yeah, no, it needs it. We keep coming back to it. Safety needs to be the place that we start from, and we need to have enforcement wherever we are in the world. I'm going to throw that at Bruce. I'm sure Bruce has got something in on that.
Yeah, I'm going to give Jonathan 10 out of 10 on the rant scale. That was fantastic, Jonathan. My hat goes
11.
off to you. 11, yeah, certainly an 11. And he's nailed everything there pretty much. With this DJ, I'm wondering if they're not playing smart. I can see that now that the drone registration has been repealed, well, it hasn't for another 7 days, has it? I'd like to know if that GoPro Karma had a registration number on it. That'd be a very interesting thing to find out. Did it have a number? Because I think Jonathan can confirm or prove me wrong. I think the court's decision is not effective for until the end of the week. A 7-day period, I think, from when they announce it to when it becomes effective. So you're still required to register your drone and keep your sticker on it at this stage. So if there's no registration sticker on that drone, then that would be a very interesting thing to find out. But what DJI have done, of course, is introduce a de facto registration system. And I'm wondering if they're not learning from the full-size aviation industry, where they're positioning themselves to be a supplier who is effectively given special privilege because they are collecting all this information. It may be that eventually we have a situation where if you want to fly a drone, you have to have a certified drone, which means part of the whole process is that the drone manufacturer collects that data, it spies on you, it collects all this other information such as the audio, video, and so forth, so that if there's an incident, the FAA can go to them and do kind of a NTSB type thing, give us all the data, we can look at it like a black box situation. Maybe that DJI are being positioned so they can say, well, we should be given special privilege, our craft effectively becomes certified as for this type of application, and anyone else that wants to get into the business, well, they're going to have to meet that certification requirement, or they will be far more constrained in what you can do with their craft. So are they positioning themselves for a monopoly in the marketplace? Someone tell me, I don't know.
Well, I think they're there, aren't they? They've got the monopoly in the marketplace, so they can write the rules. Maybe that's.
I agree. I think they're trying to do that right now with backing the manufacturers group and other things like that. Stating the fact that these the no-fly zones that are the geofence that doesn't allow us to fly, even when us as a company are authorized to fly. I think they're actually doing that. They have a hand in what's happening when it comes to things happening with the pilots. So I think that is happening. I agree. Bruce said that they have a hand in this, and that's again this comes back to where us as a community need to actually get involved. Using whatever laws we can to communicate our points and why we feel it's not fair or invalid or illegal, and that's just what it comes down to.
And John Taylor, for a fair, it was an injustice that he beat, and that was great. And he has said afterwards, that safety is a concern and things like that. And I am very surprised at the number of organisations that are jumping up and down now. I have a sense, Jonathan, that they were surprised that it was a win. What was your sense? Some of the bigger organisations.
I don't know. I mean, they all had some interesting kind of like some of them kind of came out against it, and they were saying, kind of speaking in a generality, that this is necessary for the safety and security of the national airspace. It's necessary, and it's just like, guys, at the end of the day, was this legal? Can anybody just say yes? Ever? Nobody will answer that specific question. The second one, if it was legal, was it actually adequate for ensuring safety of the national airspace by, holding people accountable or providing decent education as they go quickly through the checkout process, which actually was contradictory, not completely inclusive, and actually at certain points legally wrong? Can please just say yes? And so I'm noticing there's a lot of people that are very upset about it, but I'm not seeing anybody actually saying that it was legal or it was actually adequate. And everybody should really call up every group that they're a member of that claims to be representing them. Maybe ask them that kind of question. And furthermore, asking like, how in the world is picking a fight with the 336 guys actually helping us at the end of the day? Because I'm noticing these are the commercial guys primarily that are trying to do this. And I'm like, well, how does that actually help us at the end of the day? When I get a phone call, I got a phone call today from a person that was trying to be legal, and it was just telling me I'm just incredibly frustrated right now that I tried to be legal, and yet there's illegal operators running around all over the place just taking all the business from me, that the realtors are just laughing at me going, haha, yeah, I don't care, I'm just going to hire the illegal guy because he'll do it whenever I want. And then there's a hoopla over 336 here, and I'm just like, guys, at the end of the day, who are you representing? There are people trying to put food on the table, and they're losing work to the unsafe, the illegal operators. Why isn't there a focus on that when that is just completely blatant all over Facebook and all over Twitter and Facebook? You can go anywhere and start looking all over the place, and then we want to go out and find somebody potentially somewhere in this giant group of people that we call the model aircraft community, right? And that maybe one of them at some point somewhere will have a taped on sticker onto their drone, and then that might come in handy at some point. Meanwhile, there are a million pieces of fruit, not even low-hanging fruit. They're on the ground, and they're all in a big bucket called YouTube. There's another big bucket called Facebook. There's another big bucket called Twitter, and you can easily just go in there, and you can just start picking them out all day long. You can make all that droner jam. You can just squash them, put all those bad guys. And I'm like, seriously, why aren't we doing that? Why
aren't we doing that, Jonathan? That's something that I represent the commercial users. That's exactly what I do, and it's my living, it's my livelihood. I completely agree with you. I stopped speaking out on it more than a year ago, only because it became so prevalent. YouTube itself is fantastic.
I'm afraid you can't use that term, droner jam. I have some prior art here with me, so I'm afraid droner jam is already. I'm sorry, mate. You must have overheard me talking about it. I think we got to have some jars of droner jam now, haven't we? We've got to.
Well, it's really frustrating that I see this, and then I'm just like, what is everyone losing the focus there? That there are a lot of people that are seriously trying to move the drone industry forward in the commercial sector, who are just getting their lunch eaten completely because the FAA is doing very little to prosecute. Their enforcement philosophy is incredibly lax, which has resulted in only a total of 48 prosecutions since 2014. And so they don't have the manpower and everything. I'm like, yo, here's some practical suggestions I started thinking about practically, because I was like, I don't want to be a troll here and just be like, hey, I got the FAA, neener. I'm like, here's some practicalities I thought of how we can practically, the FAA can move forward and it'd be a win for a lot of people. So for instance, there's a second Taylor case coming down the pike. Okay, based upon the ruling of this one, there's a good chance the FAA is about to lose a second time. Okay, FAA, that's coming down the pike. And currently regulations under the Trump administration, President Trump put out a memo, an executive order requiring for every new regulation coming out, you need to repeal 2 regulations. So if the FAA is really serious about helping the commercial sector, then they should consider using Part 101 as a sacrificial regulation to then get out the over people set of regulations. So the wedding photographers, the commercial operators can start using their drones. Why don't we do that? That's a win-win. That's upholding the rule of law by following Section 336. It's keeping the commercial guys happy, and the FAA doesn't get a second black eye. There's one great example right there. Here's another great example. Why not all those $5 everyone is asking for back? Why don't you create a little, like a button you could check and say, hey, how about this? I want to donate my $5 so that the FAA can hire more attorneys to prosecute the illegal and unsafe drone flyers. We want to increase that from 48 to a much higher number. Here's the money to actually do it. Hey, large groups, why don't we start asking Congress to give the FAA money so they can beef up their legal staff to actually prosecute the drone operators? Why don't we stop trying to go after the illegal drone operators and start also trying to see if we can attach some type of liability to the large companies that are hiring the illegal operators and just churning them? So whenever a large company says, hey, I want you to do, X, Y, Z, and then you're like, yeah, I can't fly there. Okay, never mind. We're not going to work with you. And they go hire the illegal guy a second later. And so I've seen these things firsthand. Why don't they hold those guys accountable so that way we kind of stop the people that are buying from the black market? Why are we focusing on the 336 people who are by definition being safe?
We tried that. Yep. We tried that when it came going after the actual clients themselves that utilize illegal operations. That didn't get very far, and this was just in discussions with different groups I'm part of. That didn't fly, pun intended there. But I do agree with you with the supporting the continued prosecution or enlarge, getting people to get in trouble for it. But as we heard with the FAA saying that, skydiving generates more income revenue than drones do. And until that number changes.
Yeah, that's your thing. I was going to say, what organization has put a number to what the earning of the current part? Because, okay, well, we're 2 years into Part 107 and a few more years before that, aren't we? Or a year or so, but we're not long. The legal commercial industry hasn't been around long. Are there numbers? Is it saying, the industry, as you've rightly said, Jonathan, people are not being able to put food on their tables for their families? How much money is being lost to these illegal operators? And which organization is stood up to do the counting? I don't think the AUVSI has it?
No, and that's the thing. What you can't compete, or if you want to calculate your friend's uncle's brother's cousin who flies a Phantom 2 for $100, that's a little different than losing those 50 projects that were coming through that pipeline. So it really doesn't relate that way when you try to do a metric there on lost revenue or that revenue stream that's going to illegal operators. I quite see that people that are in that realm want to become legal and want to pursue a Part 107. It's something that when they start off, they don't care or they're uneducated, but eventually that's kind of the road they take, only because of the possibility of getting in trouble. It's the other side of that coin that the 336 aspect, or the guy who flies from Battery Park to the Statue of Liberty and back and gets away with it while posting it on YouTube and generating income. Those are the individuals that I think should be targeted more than the guy who's flying the bar mitzvah. That's the kind of people that are out there publicizing and generating ad revenue or social media followers should be the ones getting taken down more than someone who will eventually become part of our ranks in commercial operations.
Don't you think those people could be part of the education effort? Some of those very big YouTubers, they could spread a good word. That could be their plea bargain, couldn't it?
Exactly. That's a plea bargain. Community service. They have to do a PSA on that. Exactly. And that's, there's at least 5 or 6 I know that have over 1 million subscribers that regularly violate every single rule that we, written in stone. So I agree with that one.
Bruce, what's your thoughts on that? You're our 1 million subscriber, regularly flying illegally social media type.
Yeah, I don't have 1 million subscribers. Wish I did, but yeah, it's true. There's so many self-incriminating videos on YouTube. You think that the people who are doing that obviously don't have a clue, or they wouldn't put that stuff up there. And it's a simple job for the regulators to go along and say illegal, 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 and have a little team that goes and gets their names and addresses and just fines them or whatever. And if you do that often enough, people are going to say, well, this is getting expensive, I'm not going to do this anymore, or maybe I'll go legal or whatever. You know, it's money talks, and if you take money off people, then they soon change their behavior. That's one way of modifying human behavior. Simply saying don't do that encourages some people to do it even more. So yeah, the FAA seems totally disorganized. They're not making good use of the resources they do have, and as pointed out, it disadvantages those who are following the rules and regulations. Those who have gone the extra mile to make sure they're fully compliant at a huge disadvantage. So how does that encourage people to do the right thing? It doesn't. It encourages exactly the opposite. So isn't it time the FAA was held accountable? Do they have key performance indicators there? Do they measure their own performance? What's the story? Because I know that most organisations set KPIs. And if you don't meet the KPI, you've got to explain why you haven't met it, and you've got to come up with a strategy for addressing that issue. But it doesn't seem to happen in the FAA. Is it because it's a government organisation and they're sort of immune to that thing? I don't know. But certainly they could do better and stop wasting money on frivolous things like fighting 336 and focus on making the airspace safer, because ultimately that's got to be their bottom line, and they're failing abysmally.
I notice over there by you, your Civil Aviation Authority have admitted that they're failing in the education piece. Do you have any more about that from over that side there, Bruce?
Absolutely. I mean, I've been on at them for ages that they need to do more in the way of education. I mean, they've put up one video, which is actually the UK video. The CAA UK put up a video, a little animation of what you can and can't do. They took that, dubbed a bit over it, stuck it up as their contribution to education, which is really nothing. I've got a video up there explaining the rules and regulations, which I think's had about 17,000 views. Their one's had about 3,000. And I have been, rather than just talk about it, I do it. I go out there and I spend a lot of time working with people and educating them. I'm about to invest what amounts to about $100,000 worth of my own time and resources to provide free drone training for anyone that wants it. So people can come along and I can teach them the basics, the safety, the do's, the don'ts, the practical things that'll make them a safer operator, because that's all I can do to improve safety. I can't change rules and regulations. And regulations don't change safety. Regulations are just a way to blame people when things go wrong. And a regulation without enforcement is an advisory. So why not just make it an advisory if you're not going to enforce it? So I'm working very hard trying to get some permission from the local council to do this, but I don't know, they've all got their heads in buckets as well. They don't seem to see the scale of the problem. And little things like I mentioned on this webcast before about the biggest problem we have in New Zealand are tourists. They come to New Zealand with their Mavics and their coat pockets, and they go out, oh, this is a pretty scene, let's go and film that. And
I was just going to go do that.
They don't check the regulations. yeah.
There he is. There he is.
There he is.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't check the regulations. They don't know the regulations. And we have this little brochure, little orange safety brochure that I've said to CAA for years now, make this part of the immigration package. So when someone arrives in New Zealand with their Mavic in their coat pocket, they can read this while they're waiting for the taxi to take them from the airport, and they'll get a bit of a basic knowledge, basic understanding. And the CAA have done nothing. So finally I figured maybe it's a budgetary constraint, because these brochures must cost at least $0.01 each. So I said, why don't you just put a big billboard up or a big poster up in the airport at the end of all the ramps where planes debark, which has a QR code so they can use their phone, snap that, and it'll download a PDF of the rules. Because people don't offend usually because they want to offend. It's usually out of ignorance. So give them the ability to educate themselves, make it easy, make it simple, make it low cost. They won't do it.
Yeah, it's a funny old world, isn't it? And I am very surprised at the outrage at the Taylor case. I thought it was a good thing, but there we are. And it's just been a very heavy one, hasn't it? In our last 6 minutes, has anyone seen anything amusing, fun, or delightful that we can talk about to end on this one?
Talk about the Spark and how delightful and amusing it's going to be to have a drone that can fit in your hand and do what you need to do.
I think it's going to be a pretty cool thing, and I think it actually is the precursor of the next generation of industrial drones, and I think it's probably going to lead the charge. I think it's going to have a lot of use. People are already knocking it back, saying it's going to be too small, the camera's going to be rubbish, it's going to be this, that, and all the other. But I reckon it's going to be quite a tidy bit of kit, and and generation 2 or 3, it'll be quite amazing, I'm sure. I'm quite excited about the launch. I'm sure DJI will do really well with it. I'm sure it is made to be sub 250 grams to avoid the registration coming through in China on June the 1st.
That's I can't agree more with that. That's exactly how it's targeted, and I think more are going to come out that way. Anyone want to share on what's going on with all these tail sitters coming out and people putting it out there as like it's the new thing?
The new old thing, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Back to the old days. Yeah. I don't know. It's a pity Bruce is gone because Chris is back. Bruce is something's happening in the internet world in Australia. Yeah, I know. Tail sitters, I want to like them. I really want to like them because they do look cool and all those other good things. But I know they blow over. I've made some. They blow over. So that's my. If you can solve that little problem, the actual landing problem for the tail sitter, then it's great. But yeah, today has been a bit of a rush to get our designs out. Well, what do you think about it? Have you got any tail sitters on the bench?
No, we don't. We don't employ any tail sitters commercially. We've been approached many times by several different manufacturers. Some of the amazing claims of possible LiDAR units and all this heavyweight stuff, and some of the best out there that I've talked to still aren't ready for that. That's not ready for prime time to have that kind of a sensor and unit on that kind of an airframe. The VTOL hybrid and tail sitters, I think, are great for certain things, but it's just not there financially, especially at the level we're talking. Anything over $25,000 as an investment for a piece of equipment, you need to utilize that equipment that much more. So that specific frame of what that tail sitter can apply for really doesn't justify that. We can work that with our high-end fixed wings or our high-end multi-rotors. You don't need that hybrid at this point. Also, we all know the flight histories and the vulnerabilities of them. So it really doesn't have that position. If we can do some more research when it comes to utility collection and being able to hop and jump and fix flight away from them, but right now I just don't see it. I'm just surprised that it's come back again.
Yeah, well, that's right. Yeah, it has come back around again. And sort of my other point that I'd make to it is that if BV loss is allowed, because that's been, for some reason, I'm not quite sure why these are more capable BV loss machines than anything else, but that's part of the sales speak. If BV loss does happen, you'll just make yourself a slightly bigger fixed wing and you'll fly it in the 500 meters from the prepared strip, and then you'll disappear off down the line and land back at the other prepared strip.
Exactly, you'd be over on that side, and that's what it comes down to. The loiter and fast mover is really that area. If you can find something that can do the fast moving loiter, fast move loiter, you've already hit beyond line of sight, and that's where it's kind of like, okay, it's not beneficial yet, but it will be. Hopefully the physical hardware can get to where it needs to be.
So when you say you said fast mover, just today I was thinking we haven't seen dash capability written into the specs of things for a long time. That seems to be a word that's fallen out of favor. So perhaps we're going to see the word dash reappearing and all that sort of thing. 10 years ago, dash was a word. Tian has made me some 3D printed parts. We're getting ready to make a Spitfire, and I am astounded at the quality of, I don't know if you've played with these. There's some guys, I think it's a Czech company, is it Tian? I can't remember where, Czech, yeah, and they've come out with some amazing designs, and the camera is not going to do this any justice at all. There's no need for a spar. It's got strengthening in here. You sino it together, but it's got, and will the camera do it? And where is it? It's even got printed in the little slots for the hinges. So it's just absolutely amazing, and it is proper strong. So I'm looking forward to sticking this together. Oh, right, you haven't quite made the complete Spitfire, have you yet, Tian?
No, it'll come along now. I'm just waiting for another color. Another color filament.
It's proper strong.
But I did.
Yeah.
No, I printed this specifically just to. I'm going to do a quick strength test tomorrow. Stick it together with cyanoacrylate, super glue, and some kicker, some activator. I've done a couple of tests, so small tests, and it's strong. I mean, the bond. Initially, I was worried that split to fit onto the build area. I mean, this is only about a third of the wing, these two together. That it wouldn't be as strong here at the split, but after using super glue on this PETG filament and then just spraying it with an activator to have it bond properly, you snap it and it actually breaks around the super glue bond. That's quite amazing to me that you can do that these days, and you don't need a spar. I mean, the supports are already they're printed as the wing gets printed. You'll see in the videos I'll post in the coming weeks how it prints the internal supports there. It's crazy, and it's super strong.
I really like how those two seams match up. That's very impressive on those parts there.
Yeah, no, these guys did an excellent job. I mean, you can see I'm not sure if the camera can. You can't pick it up. If I put a light source, let's put a light source quickly behind it, and then you'll actually see the internal supports shine through, and you'll see at the joints.
Yeah, they match.
It just goes up.
And it's a real, I'd say it's a work of art. You know, if you had to make a model aeroplane like this, I can imagine the CAD must have taken like a bajillion hours to do this. And the skill, you know, I suppose it's that old aviation saw, isn't it? If it looks right, it will probably fly right. And this looks, yeah, it looks the job. And I had my doubts. I am a bit worried that there's no spar. That does go against convention, and I will be nervous until we've flown it for a few hours. And we had to go for a Spitfire because I don't own one, and everybody has to have a Spitfire. Chris had a Lancaster in the background earlier. You guys have probably got to have a P-51 by some sort of law, some sort of rule. There's probably some sort of law, isn't there? Anyway, look, we've gone 2 minutes past the hour now, so I guess Jonathan, unless you've got any, or Kevin, let's go with you first. Have you got anything else?
No, I just appreciate you inviting me on and having it be discussed openly. That was all I wished, you know, from my article and the community, was that people would be made aware and have a discussion. No reason to throw insults or anything like that, just an open discussion about what's really happening right now with that. But again, thank you very much for this, and thank you for this platform. I think it's extremely important for people to subscribe and get into it.
Well, it's very kind of you to say. Thank you. We'd love to have you back. Jonathan, have you had some sort of mild tea and sedative and managed to calm down a little bit? How are you now?
I'm okay.
You need to get on that treadmill a bit more, mate. Well, I'm guessing you've been getting a hard time from people about the Taylor case.
Not really. It's just I get the phone calls where people are trying to make a buck and feed their families, and I have to talk to them and hear them. And yeah, at the end of the day, people are losing work, and there are lots of illegal, unsafe operators out there. Why are we focusing on 336?
Yeah, no, very, very, very fair and valid point. Very fair and valid point. I wonder if it'll be heard in the right places. So with that, dear viewer, I should say the thing like subscribe and like and do all those other good things. We'll be here again next Tuesday for us guys this far around the time zone. Wednesday for Australian friends at 2100 GMT. Thanks very much, everybody that's joined us. We'll see you again next week. Cheers.
Cheers.